Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Lily Allen Duenas. Together, we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. I wanted to let you all know that I'll be teaching yoga online this year. Classes will be live streamed and also available on demand. I have $15 coupons to send to new students. If you click the link in my show notes or head on over to my website, wildyogatribe.com, you'll find everything you need. I would love if you could join me for a class to help you feel centered, refreshed, and filled with ease. Ready to dive into the show? Let's get started. Namaste, family. Welcome back to the Wild Yoga Tribe. Today, I am so excited to welcome Michela Maltoni onto the show. She is a yoga teacher from Italy who actually started her career as a professional dancer and then worked in Italian TV and with theater companies around the country, including international shows in America and on cruise ships like the Royal Caribbean. During her career as a dancer, she trained also as a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor. And then yoga arrived. After years of practicing, Michela became a yoga teacher. And in January 2020, she founded her online yoga school called Let It Yoga. It's a digital platform with over 350 lessons in which she regularly holds lessons live and on demand. She's certified in Vinyasa, Yin, prenatal, and postnatal yoga. So please welcome Michela onto the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Lily. Thank you so much to invite me, and thank you for your introduction.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited to dive in with you. For starters, I'm wondering, with a background in dancing and then in personal training and Pilates, did yoga just feel like a natural next step for you? Or was there something in particular that drew you to yoga?
I think I needed yoga for my health because after so many years as a dancer, I forced a lot my body. So arrived a time that I had a big problem of my back. I suffered from sciatica for almost 5 years. And I tried every type of therapies, but they didn't work. Anything was working for me. So the last step was, okay, try yoga. Let's try yoga. But at the beginning, there was not my time because I found yoga like slow and boring. It was not my moment. The first class was my moment after years when my body was destroyed and I really needed yoga. So I tried again and I found Vinyasa yoga. So a dynamic style that I didn't hear before. So I didn't know about this style. I found a style maybe very close to my dance background. And then I understood that was my therapy, was my way to get better and get healthy. So this is my way to come to yoga, like a necessity.
Oh, that's so powerful that I'm just kind of tickled that you tried yoga once and you're like, oh, nope, slow and boring. I'm going to avoid it. And then you came back years later and you found a new style, Vinyasa, which you felt really aligned with your, dance background and with the personality, with the style of yoga you were craving for, something more dynamic and fluid and maybe even musical, rhythmic in a way. Yeah, so I find that's very common with people I encounter. They say, oh, I don't like yoga. I tried it once. It's like, oh, but one time is like trying just one apple and saying, oh, I don't like fruit. Nope, I definitely wouldn't like bananas or strawberries or blueberries. You can't know unless you continue to try. Is that something that you've encountered with your own students, maybe?
Yes, because sometimes people need to find something close to them. So close to them rhythm. So maybe if your life is really fast, sometimes come to a yin yoga class can be like, oh, it's weird, it's too slow. But if you come to a Vinyasa class or something more dynamic, more close to your personal rhythm, maybe you can keep going. And then come to a yoga class with like, oh, I really need to slow down. But before, at the first approach, I think is really hard sometimes. And I teach Vinyasa and Yin too. So in my yoga school, I teach both styles. And sometimes the persons, pretty much a lot of people, have difficulty to approach to Yin. And they start to power yoga or Vinyasa yoga, and then they move to Yin because they needed. But after trying a long time, a dynamic style, maybe in this case, every person is different. So maybe sometimes the people need the opposite. So they need a style very slow because it is more similar to their daily life, daily rhythm. So every person has a different necessity, I think, different things that works for them.
I couldn't agree more. And also about how people usually are first drawn to the style of yoga that kind of aligns with the rhythm of their life. If you're used to that fast pace and that go, 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 or the gym where you're pushing and you're challenging, then I do think people are just they want to continue what they're used to. It's only later on when you kind of go deeper in the practice and you're more curious, when you think, oh, maybe I need to balance that instead of just keeping like pushing the same and reinforcing the same kind of proclivities and tendons on our mat. We really should try to have that balance so we can have the yin and the yang. Our lives are so yang, so I do believe yin is really needed.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and actually we need the yin part of our life. We need more yin than yang, but it's different to approach. So maybe the people are afraid to slow down so much, because I think the people found it. They look for happiness, trying to add something to their life. Especially in Italy, the people believe to have to add something to be better, to get better. And it's the opposite. We need to cut off something, to remove something to our life, remove a layer day by day. And this is scared. Sometimes the people are afraid about to get away something and cut something for be better. They don't believe it's possible. And they believe usually to waste their time. This is a common idea, to waste time if you slow down. And in Italy especially, but I think in general in the west part of the world, maybe, I don't know.
No, I think you are hitting the nail on the head there. I think people are scared to slow down. They think they're wasting their time, or they're starting to do negative self-talk saying, I'm lazy, I'm a failure, I'm not producing, I'm not creating, I'm not accomplishing. So when they are active and actually pushing, thinking, doing, there's less maybe of that inner monologue, inner voice saying how perhaps bad or lazy or slow they are. I think people are very scared of silence and stillness, because that's when some of those inner voices that maybe are not so kind, I think, come to light.
Yes, the silence is scared, the silence. So all day we are with the TV on and social media, and there are persons to talk to us every time from the outside to the inside. And when we are in silence, we have to listen the inside voice, and it's scared. Of course, it's a path. It's a journey. So it's something that we can get day by day, constantly, with the daily practice on the mat and out of the mat.
I love that phrase, on the mat and off the mat. What else do you encourage your students to practice on and off the mat?
I think that yoga is like a reflection of our daily life. So I communicate to my students in this way. I teach that every time we have a challenge on the mat or a resistance is like a situation that we can live out of the mat. So if we train our mind to stay in the challenge on the mat, we can stay in the challenge in the real life of the mat. So I think the two words are the same word. So we can keep the two words together and consider one the reflection of the others. So like a mirror.
Ooh, very well said, Michaela. I like that. I agree that it is a reflection, and especially with balance for me. I find in balancing asanas, it's just like a loud alarm. I can really, really tell, I have a very busy mind today, or I'm really struggling with the quickness of my thoughts, because if in a balancing asana, I'm just falling over constantly, it's just very humbling, but such a big, loud announcement like, oh, you are not as present and grounded. You're more vata today, right?
Yes, of course. And every person, I think, have a weakness. So maybe for you is a balance. For another person can be the flexibility, or maybe resistance, or arm balance, or backbending, or something other type of asana. And this is curious. This is very interesting, because every person is different. That's why I don't think we have to teach the same to everybody, but to make them to find their way to approach to yoga. So to find something that works for them, or maybe this was my path, so I had to find something that worked for me, and this is what I try to teach to my students.
That's an incredible thing to teach students. Absolutely. To find kind of what the challenges or what your body or mind is calling for. Speaking of that, I feel like you maybe already answered it, but you said that yoga is a reflection of our daily lives. And I was wondering, what is your definition of yoga? Of course, there's the definitions in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras or in the Bhagavad Gita, but what is your personal definition of yoga?
I think it's like I said, is a mirror and is a daily training for the life, like a dress that we put every morning before to start our day. So yoga, we can know about our challenge, our resistance, our weakness, but even about our force, our stability, our inner fire, or something that can make us motivated to push through it, the challenge of the life. So I think mirror is the word that sounds like this means yoga for me, like a mirror of the life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I also want to talk about your online school, Let It Yoga. What made you want to create an online school, and maybe walk us through how you actually got started doing that too?
Yeah, I started to think about my online yoga school in 2019, when I was stuck on the bed because I had the biggest problem of my back. So my sciatica blocked me to the bed for 2 months, and I was lost, completely lost. And in that silence, in that moment where I couldn't kept going with my activities, and everything was imposed, I had to think about my healthy, and I thought, okay, I needed to do something for myself for preserve my healthy and my back to the ears, because at that time I worked in a lot of gyms and studios around in Rome, so up and down in Rome were like 7 studios. It was crazy, and I taught fitness, Pilates, dance, and yoga. But was not enough, and yoga. I needed to teach more yoga for my health. So I decided to stop everything and dedicate my free time to create an online yoga school, because I always loved technology. When I was young, I used to edit video for holidays for friends and stuff, and I was really into technology. I really love the technology and video editing especially. So I put together two of my biggest passions, so the technology and yoga. At the time in Italy, there wasn't a lot of platform like this, and actually more in America or out of Italy. So I was following classes in American platforms, and then I thought, okay, I needed to do something like this here in Italian for me, for my students. And I worked about my school for all the 2019 until January 2012, when I opened my online yoga school at It Yoga. And I started my business. So I started like, okay, can be a way to maybe remove some extra classes from the gyms, and then become the only one job, my full job. So now I work about my school. I have a little team that can help me daily. And I'm so happy because it is something that makes me feel myself. And after my background as a dancer, where I was like not enough, I felt not enough in every situation and not myself in a lot of situations. Now I can say to be really myself and create something that make me happy every day. So I'm really, really great about this project and the choice that I did for myself.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you did that as well. And I'm glad you love technology. I don't hear that often.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's so different from yoga, like another word, actually.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think it requires a lot of patience and a lot of ability to be flexible, which I think those are two yoga qualities as well, because things go wrong all the time in technology and you always have to learn more. You're never finished learning, neither yoga or technology.
Yes. And sometimes the technology doesn't work and you don't know why. And there's no reason. So you have to accept, like yoga teach. So accept it.
Oh, yes, definitely a lot of humbling experiences to be had. And so, speaking of these qualities, I suppose maybe patience or flexibility, I'm wondering what qualities do you feel are important to build and to work on as a yoga teacher?
I think a yoga teacher should be flexible to know a student and what the student need. Like I said maybe before, not have a schedule or a way to think just, okay, yoga is this for everyone, but need to listen really what the student need to drive him to good path for them to grow started from their single point of start. So every student, I think, start from a different point of start, and we have to be aware about everybody have a different background. So even online, it is different, is even difficult to approach to the students like this, because I have a platform, I have a lot of students inside. So maybe it's hard to understand what they need. That's why I communicate by email with them a lot. So I have a relationship with them, even if are a lot of students, but if they need something, they write me, and I listen their necessity. I can move them to a different path in the school, for example, or different maybe input in the daily life to use yoga out of the mat, like I said before. So I think flexibility, like you said before, is important. Flexibility of mind is an important skill that makes the teacher a different teacher, maybe the right teacher for that student.
Ooh, flexibility of mind. I love that. And I thought it was interesting how you said, Michela, that online it can be harder to understand your students' needs. So you have to communicate with them a lot to continue to develop your relationship with them. Is there any other ways that or tips or advice that you would give yoga teachers who are listening to this? Because we definitely have a lot of yoga teachers in our audience. If they're trying to connect with their yoga students online, or they're just getting started online, how do you suggest they connect better with their students?
I think most of the time the teachers are afraid about yoga online because they think that maybe it's impossible to have a relationship with them, with the students. And my advice is trust in technology. Why trust in technology? Because when the people write an email, they open a world. Because writing is journaling. So when the people write an email to you, they can speak about something that maybe nobody knows. Even the parents, even the brother, the sister. So you know something about the students that nobody knows. And this is possible just because the people, when write, they can open the mind and the heart in a different way. It's a therapy writing. That's why I used to advise to my students to make journaling every day, even with the yoga practice. So yoga practice and journaling. I think these are two parts really important to our end. So don't think that the technology can be a wall and maybe you cannot communicate with your students like you do in real life offline. Because for my experience, for example, when I taught offline, I had no time after class. I had to run away in another class, in another place. I couldn't speak with the people after the class. And after a yoga class, so many reflections, so many thoughts come up. So the people needed to speak with the teacher. And offline, for me, for my experience, was impossible because I have to run away. So it's like, okay, see you next time, bye, really fast. And now the people have the possibility to reflect after the class and write. And when they write, they go to a different level and you can understand what they need, what the student need. And this is very important. So trust in the power of technology.
So it sounds like you ask your students to journal immediately after a yoga asana class finishes?
No, just by themselves. If they want to write for themselves, or if you write to me, except to them. So I just suggested to not maybe daily, maybe, or maybe 2 times a week when they feel to write something. I think is a great habit to speak with to speak with ourselves. I love writing. So maybe this is what I love. I try to share to my students.
I love writing as well. Absolutely. And I do have a daily gratitude journal, which I write in. Just it takes maybe 5 minutes every day to reflect on what I feel grateful for. And I always find that it's just, I used to do this journal, Michela. It was a big, long, tall piece of paper, and I taped it inside of one of my closet doors. So when I was brushing my teeth, I would take a pen and I would write what I was grateful for. It was just so amazing. Yeah. And then I would stand in front of it, brushing my teeth, reading what I was grateful for over the past weeks. I really loved having that very visual, large, you don't have to flip through a book. It really encouraged me for more reflection, I think.
That's amazing. Try to.
I hope you do. I haven't talked at all about prenatal or postnatal, but what drew you to prenatal and postnatal yoga?
This is a great story because when I opened my online yoga school, after 1 month, I get pregnant. So when I get pregnant, I was like, okay, now I have to understand what it happened to my body and I have to be prepared. And then I trained online as a prenatal and postnatal yoga teacher. So in that period, we were in lockdown. So it was impossible to do training offline in presence. So technology, the power of technology comes. And I did 2 certifications, prenatal and postnatal. And I did yin yoga too, online, during my pregnancy. And was amazing. It was amazing because when I was studying something, I was get the experience of that. So when my belly was growing, my program was growing. And then I realized my personal prenatal and postnatal yoga program in the school during my pregnancy. And so 2012 was a really important year for me. Even scarce because when I opened my school and after I get pregnant, I was like, oh, and now what I have to do? I just opened my school and now I'm pregnant. So how I can keep going with mix videos and practice 2 times a week. Why? New experience. I was scared, but I was excited because, of course, I was looking for a pregnancy, so it was something that I desired, and it was a beautiful path in a year really hard. 2012, we know, was a really hard year, but I lived this gratitude for what my gratitude about my present experience.
Absolutely. It's amazing to me. You launch your school, and then with 1 month later, you're like, oh, now everything is changing.
The time is
Oh,
crazy.
that's just the universe, isn't it? That's how it happens. Yeah. But I also was certified in prenatal, postnatal yoga. I did my training last year in 2021. And I feel so grateful for you sharing your story, because I think that to go through the training when you are pregnant, like, wow, oh my gosh, Michela, in a way, you're very lucky. You get to really experience it, the inside and the outside. For me, I've never been pregnant before. And there's things that I felt were hard to relate to, or it involved a lot of imagination, but to go through it at the same time, like, wow, I'm sure your understanding is so much more intimate.
Yes, it's a full experience. So yes, I'm great about it.
Very cool. So I also want to talk a little bit about your beautiful Italia in Roma. I would love to ask how you feel the yoga practice, or yoga in general. Like, what does that mean for the Italian people? Or is it very popular? Is there yoga studios all over Italy, absolutely everywhere? Or just to walk us through a bit more about yoga in Italy.
Yes, in Italy now there are a lot of studios. Before was not like this years ago. Yes, now a lot of people look for yoga because they need to relax and slow down. But the Italian people have two sides of their life. One means that they are multitasking and they want to do a lot of things all together, and they never stop. And the other side is like they need the yin part, like we said before. So these parts sometimes are in conflict. So they can't stay together in the same life. It's very hard. So the Italian people have to. They want to try yoga, but sometimes they can't do daily because their life is too busy, because the people can't stop themselves, can't stop in the daily life. They need to add something. And if you propose maybe 1 hour class, they're like, is too much maybe. So online, my experience says that maybe 30 minutes is okay to fix in their daily life. So yes, Italian people another thing about the Italian people is that if something is too spiritual at the beginning, they don't approach in the correct way, in the right way. So they try to find a new way to elaborate the concept of yoga. And that's why I developed this approach more like daily life on the mat, daily life into yoga, like I said before, like a mirror of the daily life. Because in this way, the people grow their curiosity to know more. So knows more about why this asana make me feel like this, why this mudra, why this pranayama, and then you can put inside in the program like more spirituality. At the beginning, you need to respect their point of start, So yes, they are like delicated a little bit, and they needed to drive step by step to a spiritual world.
Absolutely. That's something I've heard a lot from other yoga teachers as well, is the spiritual aspect of yoga can be very polarizing, or people can feel kind of conflicted about saying Om or chanting mantras or doing mudras. They feel like even the gesture of namaskar, that prayer position of the hands, they even feel like that could be disrespectful.
Even the Om can be weird at the beginning. Why you have to pronounce like this. Why? So even this.
Yeah, even that, you're so right. Do you feel like students are pretty vocal with you about when they're uncomfortable or they're confused, or do you just try to go very slowly so you're slowly kind of making them more comfortable or more aware of these quote unquote spiritual practices and elements of the yoga practice?
Yeah, so we needed to be patient, I think, with them because we, of course, study yoga. We are into yoga. We are teachers. So we love yoga, of course. But the people that don't say about this word, they need to, we need to treat them like a child and like kids that introduce them to a new world, a really new world, a new way to see everything. So yes, patient, I think, is the key word about being a teacher in 2022.
Yes, absolutely. And so, if some of our listeners, Michela, have never been to Italy before, or maybe they've never really even heard much about Italy, they just think of pasta and gelato. Can you tell us a little bit about your country?
So my country. I traveled a lot for years, and then I came back here like this is my home. I want to stay here. And when I was a child, I was like, I want to leave. I want to go in America. I want to leave Italy. And now I really love my country because I traveled. So maybe I saw everything around me and I found my roots here. I understood my roots. Italy is, I think, a really positive place where where the people come here, they describe the Italian people like smiling and they feel this in Italians. And the food is really good, of course. So I ate when I traveled. I really missed the food here. I really, really missed. And when I'm pregnancy too, and I couldn't eat prosciutto crudo, I was crazy for this. Now I can eat it. So yes, food and of course the story. Especially I live in Rome and Rome is a magic city full of story. If you walk in the center of Rome, you can feel the story come up from the ground. Is really amazing this. And so you can feel, I think, the story of this country everywhere you walk. So this is, I think, amazing.
Rome is definitely a very special place. I spent, I think, about a week there with some friends a few years back, and it was just magical. It's a beautiful city. So, Michela, if some of our listeners are curious about your online offerings and they want to get in touch or learn more, what is a good way for them to do that? And I also, of course, will add all the links in the show notes and on my website, wildyogatribe.com, so people can directly click and find you. But it would be great to hear more about your online offerings.
Thank you so much. So yes, my service is about my yoga school. So in my platform, Let It Yoga, and that's it, I think.
Beautiful. And also, I know you wrote a book. Do you want to talk a little bit about the book?
Yeah, yes, I wrote a book in a blue period of my life, a very hard period. It was 2016, and I published for the first time is a novel about the seven chakras. I always loved the seven chakras, even before yoga, because I knew chakras before yoga. I read a lot of books about it and was in love with this concept. And so I wrote my book in that period. And like I said before, writing was my safety. I pushed through it, a hard part of my life, writing this story. It's a story about a little girl, like 10 years old, that started their personal journey through seven magic words, the seven chakras. So 7 words, and where she understands in every word a single power, the power of that chakra. So this book is really important for me. And my book, the name is Sette colori per Sofia. So 7 Colors of Sophia. And so, yes, this is a part of my life that is about my inner child. I believe a lot in the power of the inner child, and I try to share this to my students every day in the social media, in my yoga class. So, yes, I think this is a great power that we need to find, because when we grow up, we lose that part, and we need to reconnect with that.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy that you wrote that book and that it sounds just like such a beautiful story. I love the 7 words gives you 7 powers and mastery of the chakra, and you get to watch this 10-year-old girl grow as well. It's over the period of...
Yes, that girl is like a part very weak in that period in me, because in that period my parents break up. So I was adult because I was 2016, so I was a woman. But in that moment, my inner child was crying. That's why I needed to write that book. It was a necessity for me.
Yes, a very cathartic experience, that emotional release and processing. You're right. Writing is definitely a big gift and a big way to kind of heal as well.
Yes, and I think in the worst part of our lives, we can create the best things. Like my school was born in a really bad moment. This book was born in a really hard moment of my life. So we need to take care about these periods, because there is a jewel inside and we need to find it.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Michela, for being on the show with me today. It has been a joy to be with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was an amazing experience for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. My conversation with Michela Maltoni was so delightful as we spoke about how different types of yoga align with different people's rhythms, and how yoga is a mirror, a reflection of our daily life. We also talked about how yoga can heal a destroyed body and how flexibility of mind is needed in yoga teachers everywhere. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Be well. Thank you for the gift of your attention today. If you feel called, please share this episode with someone who you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. Also, I hope you can join me for yoga classes live streamed and on demand on Moxie, a new platform where I'm hosting classes. To take advantage of those $15 off coupons available for new students, the links are in the show notes as well as on my website, wildyogatribe.com. I'll see you on the mat. And as always, be well, dear one, be well.